So over the past 7 years, I've tried a ton of different budgeting methods, with some being so complicated that I quit almost immediately, and then others being pretty good, like an app called Mint, until they eventually decided to shut down. So in this video, I'm gonna walk through the only budgeting method that I've been able to consistently rely on over the years, which is actually a simple template that I created in Google Sheets. And this budget's been so effective that I've been able to go from living paycheck to paycheck, saving exactly 0% of my income in my early 20s, to now saving upwards of 60% or even higher every single month. Now, this is the budgeting template right here, and I'm happy to say that this is going to be available for anyone out there to download completely for free with the link down below in the description. But in order for you to actually get any sort of value from it, I do have to kind of explain how it works. So sit back, take some notes, and go ahead and share this video with someone else out there you know who needs a budget, and let's get right into it. Now, this file is basically broken up into a separate sheet for every single month down here at the bottom of the screen with all these different tabs, which means that you can track your spending for the entire year all in one place. And then there's also going to be this one extra tab at the end for credit cards that I'll explain a little bit later on, because this budget is also going to be designed to track the credit card rewards you're earning in addition to the money you're saving. So because this video is coming out in March, let's just go ahead and jump over to that month. And the first thing you're going to see here is this sheet is split up into 4 sections: income budget, expenses budget, actual income, and actual expenses. The reason for that is because over on the left of the screen, that's where we're going to go and set our budget of what we think we're going to earn and what we think we're going to spend based on previous months. And then over on the right of the screen, that's where we're going to go and track the actual income we receive and the actual expenses we spend money on throughout the month. You'll see how this works as we go on here, but in my own personal budget that my wife and I share, what we like to personally do is on the first day of the month, we start in the top left income budget section, and essentially we just type in what we think or what we expect our income is going to be. Now, to keep things simple here for this video, let's just go ahead and assume there's only going to be one single person's income to keep track of. So I already went and pre-entered some of that by just saying that person A is going to get paid on March 5th, and then again 2 weeks later on March 19th. Now, you want to focus on keeping track of your net income here, or in other words, just go ahead and put in whatever your paycheck is going to be once it hits your bank account after taxes, health insurance, 401k contributions, or really anything else that's already been taken out. If you get paid your entire gross paycheck and you're going to be the one who's responsible for estimating and then paying your own taxes, then you also might want to go ahead and do some sort of a rough estimate for that here and multiply your gross pay by maybe 0.3 to account for roughly 30% in taxes that you'll owe. But definitely make sure you go ahead and do your own research and maybe even talk to an accountant if you really want a better plan for that. Next, we'll leave person B's income blank, but again, you can always enter that in here as well if you're budgeting in a 2-player mode like me and my wife do. And then under that, we can also include any other income that you might be receiving in any given month. Most people only have one main source of income for now, and that's okay. But one other additional income source that you could include here as well is going to be interest from a high yield savings account. So I typed that in here as roughly $62 from one account and then $31 from another account. Just for reference, if you have $20,000 inside of a high yield savings account right now, paying 3.80% APY, that's going to be around $760 in interest earned for the entire year, or around $63 per month. So that definitely adds up over time and can sort of help to cover some expenses. If you don't already have a high yield account, then I also went ahead and included a blue hyperlink right here where you could just go and sign up for one. And as always, those links are totally optional, but they are the best way to help support the free content here on this channel. So thank you to anyone out there who uses them. Now, as the month goes on, all you got to do is just go ahead and track your actual income as it comes into your bank account. And then you just enter in that information over there to the right under the actual income section, where it should be pretty much the same as your income budget, unless you maybe have some sort of really variable and unpredictable income. All right, so pretty simple stuff with the income here, but next let's go ahead and move on to the expenses part of this budget file, because I know there's a lot of people out there who have downloaded previous versions of this budget and they really like the way the visualizations work here. So on the lower left, we have the expenses budget section, and just like the income budget, this is where you're going to basically try to just categorize wherever you want to spend your money and what you think or you expect you're going to spend in each one of those categories. Again, for the purposes of just moving this video along, I already went ahead and entered in a bunch of these example categories and example amounts here, so you could just change that stuff up once you download this file for yourself. And I also went ahead and left some room for a few extra categories as well. Now, these categories are going to be split up into fixed expenses that generally stay the same each month, like rent, car payment, subscriptions, and things like that. And then there's also going to be variable expenses below that, like groceries, travel, and more, including a category for miscellaneous expenses. Under that, the sheet is going to add up all the expenses in your budget and then just put that total down here. And then below that is going to be the all-important profit cell that basically just takes your budgeted income and then subtracts your budgeted expenses to give you an estimated monthly profit. The cell under that then takes that profit and runs some quick math to just calculate your savings rate. And if that savings rate is greater than 0%, then it's going to turn green because you're saving money. But if you're at 0% or below that, then it's going to turn red because your cash flow is negative and you might want to make some changes. Obviously, the higher the savings rate, the better, because then you can save or invest all that extra cash, or you can just go ahead and have the room to spend on more discretionary items like maybe a trip you want to take or something like that. Now again, this is only the income and expenses budget from the left side of the screen. So next here, we got to go ahead and move over to the actual expenses section on the lower right of the screen, because this is really where you're going to start to learn how much exactly you're saving or losing every single month. So in the actual expenses section, this is where just a few times throughout the month, we're going to go ahead and go through our credit card statements, bank account statements, or anywhere else we might be spending money. And then we're just going to individually enter in every single transaction here. Now you might be thinking, isn't that going to be really time consuming and kind of annoying to do all that manually? And the answer to that is yes, budgeting should take some time to do if you want to get really good at it and really good at understanding where your money's going. There's a reason why most people just don't budget. And so if you want to get ahead of most people, then you kind of have to do what most people are not willing to do. But as somebody who has 23 credit cards myself and a few different bank accounts that I might have transactions from that I need to track, I do like to use a few apps out there to help me with this process of just sorting through my expenses. Personally, my favorite app for this has been Rocket Money, which I've talked about before here on the channel, so I'll leave a link to them down below. But there's also a number of other apps out there that you can choose from. So basically the way this works is you just have to link all your accounts and then you can see all your transactions in one single place to save you time. Now to show you exactly what to put in this actual expenses section, let's just say that we had a rent payment of $2,300 to keep track of that we paid at the beginning of the month using our Built MasterCard to earn 1x points on rent without paying any extra transaction fees. What we would do here is type in rent, and then for the vendor, we could just say that it's our landlord or whatever management company you want to pay rent to. And then new here to this file compared to previous versions of this budget is going to be a drop-down category list. Basically, this category column in this drop-down list is going to reference whatever categories you type in over here to the left. And so you can either just scroll through this drop-down list to find the exact matching category, or you can also just start typing and then press the tab key to kind of autofill the category like I'm doing for rent here. Then we can enter in the rent of $2,300 that we paid. We could say that maybe we paid that on the first day of the month here in March. And like I said before, we can even track the credit card points we're earning by selecting the Built MasterCard here from the drop-down menu and then typing in a points multiplier of 1x that we're earning on rent spend with that card. And that's going to calculate the amount of points we get as well as the value of those points at a 1 cent per point rate. Now, the drop-down list here for the credit card column is going to be referencing the card list tab at the bottom of this file. And over there in that list, you can see basically all my credit cards that I have, but you can also edit this as much as you need to, and it should automatically update that drop-down list over there in the budget. Now, what you'll see is that this $2,300 rent expense is going to automatically populate over here to the left under this green actual expenses column. So that way we can actually compare this directly to our budgeted amount for that category. And since we're going to be within our budget here, that cell for the actual expense of rent is going to be this green color. However, if we were over budget, then that's going to look a little bit different here. So next, let's say that we decided to go out to eat a few times over the past month, which is going to affect our dining budget where we said we were only going to spend $250. So let's say that we went out to dinner at a nice steakhouse by typing that in here, and that's going to fall under our dining category. We paid $200 for that on March 7th, and then we put that on our Amex Gold card because we know that we're going to be able to earn 4x back on that. We see that just like the rent expense, that $200 amount is then going to auto-populate over here next to the dining category this time. But what's going to be really useful is that if we add multiple transactions to the same category, this file is going to add them all up for you to help you keep track of things. So let's also say that we went out to dinner the following week as well at maybe a sports bar this time by typing that in here, and that again is going to fall under our dining category. And let's say this expense was for $100 on March 14th and also went on the Amex Gold card to earn another 4x points on that. Over on the left, we can now see that our budget added up these two dining transactions of $200 and $100 to get $300 in total spent in this category so far this month. And because our budget that we set for dining was only $250, that means that we're officially over budget. And so this cell here turned red to let us know that happened. Now, if we see that red cell during the middle of the month, then that's going to tell us to maybe kind of slow down in that spending category, or at least try to be aware of that and then maybe cut back somewhere else in another category to kind of make up the savings. But if we start seeing too many months in a row where we're going over that budget in that one category, then what that's going to tell us is that we might need to be more realistic about what we're setting for our dining budget, for example, in the beginning of the month. And so that means that in the next month, we might want to actually go ahead and expect to spend a little bit more on that and increase our category based on our track record. Now, because we already added in our actual income to keep things simple at the top of this file, that's going to mean that with each expense and each transaction we type in here, our actual expense total is going to add up and our profit is going to shrink. So right now our actual expenses are $2,600 and we're left with around $3,295 profit for around a 55% savings rate. But if we add a grocery transaction for $100 in the grocery category on March 5th, and then we also add a car payment transaction to the car payment category for $300 on March 10th, plus we also add in our gym membership to that category for $70 on March 11th, then after adding up a few of those fixed and variable expenses, now we're at $3,070 of actual expenses. That's going to leave us with around $2,825 of profit and around a 48% savings rate. So the idea here is that throughout the month, as you kind of just type in your income you receive and whatever expenses you're paying for, you're going to be able to see these numbers at the bottom of the screen with the profit and the savings rate adjust in real time. Then at the end of the month, you can really start to see if you were even close to your budget and kind of make any changes if necessary. But my advice here is that if you're new to budgeting, you actually do not want to make any changes to your spending habits at first. Instead, you want to follow 3 steps in this exact order here if your goal is to increase your savings rate to eventually reach upwards of 60% savings or higher. And so step 1 here is to track your spending for 3 months using my budgeting template, or honestly any other apps or budgets out there that work best for you. What I found is that getting into the habit of budgeting and doing that very consistently is already challenging enough. So you just don't want to make it too hard on yourself to remember to keep budgeting and cut back on spending on groceries and cancel unwanted subscriptions and try to pick up a side hustle, because that's just way too many things at one single time. The fact is, again, that most people quit budgeting, and so I kind of think here that one of the goals with this stuff that no one really talks about is that you should try to avoid budgeting burnout by tackling just one thing at a time. So again, just start here by tracking your expenses for 3 months to sort of get a good baseline idea of what your spending habits actually are. And then once you're consistently budgeting, after that, you can start to tackle making some cuts. Cutting those expenses is going to be step number 2 here. And with this, you want to start by trying to focus on cutting back in a realistic way that doesn't really affect your current lifestyle or your comfort levels too much if possible. Start by attacking the excess areas of spending that are more of the wants in your life, like shopping, miscellaneous purchases, home decorations, or really anything that's not going to be classified as a need. If you still have to create more room in your budget after that, then at that point, you can start taking a look at making changes with the needs in your life, like your housing expense, car payments, or even groceries. But these changes might require a bit of sacrifice, like driving further away to a more affordable grocery store, downgrading your car to something less expensive, or maybe even going out and trying to find a roommate to split rent with. Making cuts to your spending can be really tough out there, but it's going to be a necessary first step to make when it comes to increasing your savings rate, because that's going to be by far the quickest and the easiest way to do that. For me, when I moved into my first apartment in Philadelphia after college and I had a 0% savings rate, once I got a good understanding of my spending habits from my budget, what I was able to do was I was able to make cuts that got me to around a 10% savings rate. And then eventually, as I got a few small raises and did some other side hustles here and there, I was able to get that number close to 20%. However, that's when I sort of started to reach a plateau, because at some point what you realize is that you get to a place where you can't really cut back anymore without sacrificing too much. So that's when I knew that if I wanted to increase my savings rate even higher, I had to kind of go out and start focusing the majority of my time and attention on the income side of my budget, which is going to be step number 3 here. I know it sounds super obvious to say that you need to make more money in order to hit a high savings rate like 60%, but it's the reality that most people eventually figure out after budgeting for a while. So even though it's easier said than done, I have to say it here that you need to have a plan to increase your income. That plan does not have to lead to more income right away by any means, because you might be on some sort of a career path that eventually leads to a bigger payday in the future right now, but you do need to have at least some sort of a plan in place, which is what I started to do around 2020. For me personally, that meant trying to break into a career like consulting, or I even thought about applying for grad school, but it also meant trying different side hustles at the same time to see if I could maybe make some sort of income on my own. And eventually that led to this YouTube channel, even though I made exactly $0 at all for the first 6 months. But because I had a plan, eventually I made an extra $100 one month, and then I made $200 and then $1,000. And then all of a sudden I found myself actually quitting my job and growing a small media business on my own that exceeded my job's income potential. It all started from budgeting though, because without seeing all my income and all my expenses in one single place, I would have never even known where to start to cut things to increase my savings that even allowed me to have the room to quit my job in the first place. So if you've watched this far, then I want you to go ahead and download my free budgeting template we talked about in this video with the link down below in the description. And also, as another free added bonus, I'm going to send you guys my net worth tracker, where you can basically just watch your wealth grow over time. That net worth tracker is pretty straightforward to use, because a few times throughout the year, all you got to do is just update that sheet with balances from your bank accounts, investment accounts, minus any debt that you might have. And then you can just duplicate that sheet as many times as you have to and just watch your wealth grow. Now, if you got any sort of value from this video or from our free templates, then make sure to go ahead and tap the like button and subscribe down below as well as you go and download those templates. And also, again, go ahead and share this video with anyone else you know who needs a budget. But as always, thanks so much for watching.